Hi, good morning. My name is Brian Higgins. I'm a partner and I serve as KPMG's US consulting leader for industrial manufacturing. And I'm joined here by Danielle Beringer, also a partner, and she happens to serve as our data transformation leader for industrial manufacturing. And Danielle, before we get started and we sort of have a navigate our journey through data as a strategic asset, there's been a long-standing recognition on the critical role data plays in helping our clients steer a business, whether it's driving performance, quality, costs, on an internal basis, or if it's improving how our clients think about how they compete and the markets they serve. So the importance of leveraging data as a real strategic asset, I think, is pretty well understood. But getting the foundation right and working towards realizing the aspiration has absolutely proven tricky. With that as a backdrop, interested in sharing your perspective on what do you view as the most significant challenges that our industrial manufacturing organizations and clients are seeing and what they're facing in terms of the journey towards data modernization?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. The most prominent that we see in our industrial manufacturing clients is a failure to align their data modernization efforts with their strategic business objectives. These are fundamentals like looking at data quality, understanding their data portfolio and the assets that they actually have in their organization. Sometimes this can be having a proliferation of data without any governance, without business context specific value understood. So that data sprawl without a data catalog or without a map is really where we find a lot of our industrial and manufacturing clients stuck. I would say that the way that we help them move towards modernization is to do an inventory of their IT estate, particularly around data as an asset, identify and value that data to determine what would be the priority data products that could really unlock some innovation. And often that is by looking at what are the data assets that everyone in the company is using or a derivative of that, and then guiding them into a roadmap. How do you onboard areas into governance? How do you enable them with data accessibility, particularly if they're undergoing a large ERP modernization or if they're doing some significant technical debt in order to modernize?
Yeah. And none of what you described can be advanced in a silo, right? It requires alignment across, at a minimum, you have IT, finance, various business functions. It's not easy to get right. How important do you view the overall data culture in the success of these data modernization efforts?
It's absolutely essential in multiple ways. The first is providing upskilling and digital fluency to the organization. So there are new tools being made available to consume data, but there is also a need for data literacy programs. So we see great success in our industrial manufacturing clients that commit to a progressive curriculum that looks at the data context for the business at hand, empowers people to not only have the digital skills, but connect more closely to the data context. And I'll give an example. The utility of data or what it is actually intended to do often is misunderstood. Perhaps they're deriving local metrics and KPIs. They simply don't have the guidance and the compass around the correct use or data utility. So data literacy programs that show people the catalog of data and connect them to the data steward. So imagine training or fine tuning a chat GPT like experience on the wrong data or on data that the utility is not correct for that purpose. And it really has obviously devastating results. When you look at an industrial manufacturing client that has a, let's say, generative AI investment or program where they pre-screen the data that's going to be available in a prompted interface, like service manuals or standard operating procedures, or details on a product, like a product information guide, and they've trained that model on certified quality and understood data, there's a huge trajectory and improvement in overall data understanding in that organization.
True. And I think you made a couple of interesting points, right? I mean, and rooted in this, getting this right involves introducing a new capability to the organization, right? It's much more than a project, right? We've seen some disastrous outcomes of sort of project orientation. But given that, how should companies think about measuring the progress and the success of their data modernization initiatives?
So there are three categories that we endorse and recommend. That would be there's people metrics, there's technology metrics, and there are process metrics. For people metrics, that would be things like how many people have been through a data literacy or digital fluency program that they understand the data catalog. They understand the data in their area, in their department, and they also understand the data that they are connecting to or blending with their data. It also looks at things like in that person's job function, how much of the time are they spending on data wrangling or correcting data issues versus actual insights generation and data exploration. So if you consider an average work week, let's say it was 40 hours a week, are they spending 30 hours data wrangling and only 10 hours really digging into those insights? So that metric might look very different before they get into a more formal program. What does the metric look like after? After you equip them with the tools, the education, and the connectivity to others in the organization, we would expect that 30 hours to be compressed significantly, right? It also shows areas for automation. That process can also be looking at metrics and KPIs for how am I interacting with my suppliers in a supplier portal? How am I interacting with perhaps our frontline that is taking customer service or the customer experience. So metrics and KPIs very specific to how quickly people can move through the process and how they can shorten the time to insights. How are we reducing our costs and cost takeout for maybe simplifying the technology ecosystem? And that's especially important when we look at manufacturing, where manufacturing IT and corporate IT can sometimes be two different organizations. So metrics and KPIs on running that like a well-oiled machine as it pertains to data is really important. So again, all three, people, technology, and process KPIs should be measured before, which is current state, during a transformation for data, and then after to ensure that innovation is the top priority and that value isn't being lost through an expensive operations type cycle.